Some homes protect you. Hinterkaifeck stalks you. A lonely Bavarian farmhouse, hidden behind trees and time. It sits in silence, surrounded by whispers, its walls soaked in blood and mystery. March 1922, the end of winter, but in the heart of rural Germany, a far colder presence was waking up. 6 people lived on that isolated farm. Andreas Gruber, a stern and unpleasant man, his wife Kazilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, her 2 young children, little Kazilia and baby Josef, and the brand new maid, Maria Baumgartner, who had just arrived. They were alone, no phones, no neighbors nearby, just them, the snow, and something watching from the woods. Weeks before the murders, strange things began happening. Andreas told people he'd found footprints in the snow, leading from the forest to the barn, but none returning. He heard footsteps in the attic at night. The keys to the house vanished. A newspaper no one subscribed to appeared on the porch. Everyone in town thought Andreas was paranoid or drunk. But Maria, the new maid, had replaced one who had quit, claiming the house was cursed. On March 31st, 1922, someone struck. One by one, Andreas, his wife, his daughter, and young Kazilia were lured into the barn. There, they were murdered with a mattock, a brutal tool, like a sharpened pickaxe. The killer didn't rush. Each kill was deliberate, silent. Inside the house, Maria and baby Josef were also killed. The entire family, gone in one night. But this is where the horror becomes something else. The killer didn't leave. For 4 days, smoke drifted from the farmhouse chimney. Someone fed the livestock. Someone prepared meals. Someone slept, just a few feet away from the corpses. Neighbors thought it odd. The family hadn't been seen. One even spotted a figure in the trees, holding a lantern, slowly moving through the mist. When they finally went to check, they found a nightmare. In the barn, under a pile of hay, the bodies. Inside the house, Maria and Josef, dead. No signs of a break-in, no valuables missing, nothing stolen. But the scene was strange, almost staged. The police were baffled. Hundreds of suspects, no arrests, no confessions. And the theories began to spread. Some believed Victoria's dead husband had returned from war, seeking revenge. Others suspected a neighbor, Lorenz Schlittenbauer, who had once courted Victoria and was among the first to arrive. He moved too comfortably in the home, people said. He seemed to know too much. Others whispered about incest. It was known around the village that Andreas had an unnatural relationship with his daughter Victoria. They had both been arrested years earlier. Maybe someone had finally had enough. Maybe it was justice. Then came the darker theories. An itinerant killer, a war-traumatized soldier, or maybe something worse. Something not entirely human. Cecilia had clumps of her own hair in her hands. The coroner said she lived for hours after the attack, alone, injured, terrified in that cold barn. The image of her dying slowly, helpless, is something that still haunts anyone who reads this case. The murder weapon, the mattock, was later found hidden in the attic. That attic, where Andreas had heard footsteps days before. Police tried everything. They questioned locals, searched homes, even consulted psychics. They followed every lead. Every trail went cold. Eventually, they demolished a house in 1923. Today, only a stone cross marks the spot, but the ground feels wrong. Even now, it's said that animals refuse to graze too close. Years passed, but the questions didn't fade. In 2007, a group of German students reinvestigated the crime using modern profiling. Their conclusion? The killer knew the family, knew their routines, knew how to move through the farm without raising alarm. And yet, no DNA, no fingerprints, no definitive proof. Only speculation. Some say the killer lived nearby, watched for weeks, maybe months. That strange newspaper, the footsteps in the attic, the missing keys, all signs, all warnings ignored. The chilling part is that someone lived with those bodies, fed the animals, ate food from the family's kitchen, maybe even sat in their chairs, read their letters. It wasn't just murder, it was possession. A complete takeover of a family's life and home. Why? No motive was ever confirmed. It wasn't robbery. There was money in the house, left untouched. If it was revenge, the killer never made a statement, never revealed themselves. If it was insanity, it was a quiet madness, one that planned, waited, watched. Neighbors later reported seeing lights at the house, even after the murders, strange figures, whispers. A few even claimed to hear crying. But police found nothing. No signs of life, only decay. And yet the story refuses to die. Books, documentaries, online forums, everyone has a theory. Was it Lorenz? Was it someone no one suspected? A priest, perhaps, a family member. Some believe the killer died in World War II, taking the secret with him. Others say he, or she, is still buried under a false name somewhere in Bavaria. Some say the farm itself was cursed. The land where it stood was always avoided by the villagers, long before the murders. There were older stories, tales of disappearances, vanishing animals, shadowy figures in the forest. Local children were warned not to go near. Maybe the Grubers were just the latest victims. Maybe Hinterkaifeck takes what it wants. 6 dead, no arrests, no motive, and one brutal truth. Someone stayed, not just to kill, but to linger, to live there, among the dead. That part, that's what breaks people. Not the act of murder, but the days after. Imagine that. Imagine a killer so comfortable with their crimes that they sleep a few feet from the bodies, feed the cows, cook soup, as if nothing happened. Imagine being a neighbor, thinking, smoke still coming from the chimney, all must be well. But inside, death, rot, silence. Today, the case is still taught in criminology courses, still dissected by amateur sleuths, still the subject of nightmares, because there are too many details that don't make sense. Too many signs ignored, too many questions that no one can answer, and no matter how many years go by, Hinterkaifeck waits. Some say the land is silent now. Others say they hear things. At night, just before dawn, rustling in the trees, steps in the grass, low breathing through the mist. You see, some mysteries remain cold because there's nothing left to find. But this one still breathes. It still pulls you in. It still whispers your name when no one's around. So if you ever find yourself in Bavaria and you pass a field marked only by a cross, don't stop. Don't look. And whatever you do, don't listen. Because the house may be gone, but Hinterkaifeck is still there, somewhere beneath the soil, somewhere in the wind, watching, waiting. 6 dead, 1 murder weapon, 0 answers. A case soaked in blood and buried in fog. Perhaps the killer still walks among us, wearing a smile, holding a coffee cup, nodding politely as you pass by. Or maybe it was never a person. Maybe something darker claimed that farm. And when it's ready, it'll claim another. This file is now closed. But the archive? It's never full. And when the clock strikes midnight again, we'll be waiting, ready to open the next one. Subscribe if you dare. This is Midnight Archives.